Good morning, Miss Wallach. Thank you for meeting me today. How are you?
Good morning, Miss Noda. I'm doing very well today. Thank you for asking. It was a pleasure meeting with you today.
I want to start off by saying that I enjoyed observing your first grade science class on Tuesday, July 28th from 9:30 to 10:10. Thank you for agreeing with me on that date and time. Your students seemed engaged, ready to learn, they were familiar with the routine, and they participated when you asked questions.
It was wonderful having you in class the other day. The class really loves science and really enjoys having visitors.
Well, it was very obvious. I would like to begin by asking you how you felt you did during that lesson of the sun.
Overall, I feel my lesson went well. The students were engaged, they were eager to learn, they mostly stayed on task, and I feel the objective was met by most students.
Okay. So if it was met by most students, what would you do differently then?
After going home and reflecting on the lesson and the student outcomes, I came up with a few things. I really noticed that the ELL learners were struggling a little bit, and all the students really would have benefited from maybe a little warm-up of East and West. I figured, they're first graders, to do something, get them out of their seats. I would have engaged them in a game of science. Simon Says real quick. For East and West, Simon says turn east, Simon says turn west. In order to really help those ELL kids, I would have had arrows pointing and then at the words, okay, so turn east, turn west. And then throughout the lesson, I could have kept referring to these cards to better help them understand, oh, east is the direction, it's this way, or west is the direction, it's that way.
Yeah, good. That's great reflecting.
I also felt, too, instead of just using the sun trackers we had previously made in center time, and in addition with the video of the sun we watched, I would have had the kids up out of their seats and possibly each acting as the sun, moving throughout the classroom.
Okay.
For example, could have taped little suns to each kid and had east and west labeled like I said earlier. And then I would give out a time, okay, it's the afternoon, where would the sun be? And then they could all scramble to the center of the room. Okay, the sun's setting, where would we be? And they could all scramble to the west. I feel that would have better helped engage all of the students, not just a few. And it really would have helped my struggling friends maybe grasp the concept, oh, east and west are directions. The sun is moving. We're all moving different ways throughout the day.
That was great. It looks like you really took that science lesson and you kind of went back home and you reflected on it and you tried to see what you could do differently so that all your students could benefit from it more.
Exactly. Being it's my first year in first grade this year, it's my first time going through each lesson, so I hope to be even better next year with these lessons.
Absolutely, and that's why you and I will meet, to go over and kind of collaborate and reflect and see what else we can do differently.
Perfect.
Ms. Wallach, what do you think your students gained from this science lesson?
Well, I really do think my students left the lesson with a better understanding of how the sun does change positions throughout the day, and now they do also realize the sun can be helpful with telling us where to go. Initially, in the beginning of the lesson, when we did our KWL chart, many students thought the sun just disappeared because it was going to sleep like they do at night, and we just really have a sun to grow flowers and make the day happier. Now I'm seeing the students are understanding the sun does rise, it comes up and it sets, and it happens in the same direction every day. So if we do know where the sun is positioned, it could ultimately help us with directions. And even for my friends who didn't totally grasp the east and west concepts, they still did leave the lesson knowing the sun's changing positions and it does have an actual purpose in our atmosphere.
Well, that's great. Again, it looks like you really thought about how your students were able to gain more knowledge from this really cute and adorable science lesson on the sun. I think you did a really amazing job trying to incorporate things. So prior to myself going into your class to observe your first grade science class, we okay on a couple of observation tools, and I want to go over with them with you again, just so that you can have a reminder of what I was looking for when I was in there for those 40 minutes. And I don't want you to worry. I think you did a phenomenal job. So as a first-year teacher, I think you're really knocking it out of the park.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I want to go over with you is these questions that I came up with for diverse learners. So I do know that you have a few special ed children in your classroom that are included in your science class. Specifically, there's 3 in there. So I just wanted to see how you targeted those children.
Okay.
So your proximity to those students in particular was great. You were constantly walking around the room to check on those individual students. You found different ways of encouraging the students by giving them verbal praise and air high fives.
They really love those.
They do.
Air high fives. It makes their whole day.
Well, that's great to see. Positive reinforcement techniques. Again, the air high fives, the verbal praises, thumbs up, you smiling all the time. Those were great. The modifications for individual type of children. Again, I saw that you paired up kids together. That was a great way of using, the stronger children and trying to help out the weaker children. Using children's strengths. Again, you paired up the weaker learner with the stronger learner. You also used multiple ways in which the lesson was unfolding. You had the sun taped onto the kids, you had your east, your west, and all that stuff. So that was great too. You had integration of grouping according to needs and skills, which was also phenomenal. And the only thing that I didn't see a lot of though, but it's okay because you did great on all the other areas, was scaffolding of instruction. But it's like what you mentioned earlier when you went back to reflect how you could have, done the lesson just a little bit differently.
Okay.
Thank
you.
And then this other chart here is for our ELL learners. You do have 2 in the classroom who are just emerging English language learners. This area, you kind of went half and half on, but it's okay. We'll work on it together. So the way that you talk to the students, I really want you to kind of slow down your speech a little bit. Be careful with the kinds of words that you're using. Remember, they are learning English. It's not their native language. But again, like you mentioned before, you are looking to modify your instruction for next time.
Do you recommend I maybe print out flashcards for these students for each lesson with vocabulary, and they could keep those kind of in the corner of their desk? Have pictures matching on the board. Point to them maybe.
Yeah, that would actually be a really great idea.
Okay.
See, you got it. So also allowing wait time for the students when you speak, and then when they speak, you really should try to allow for a little bit more thinking time.
Okay.
So that would be helpful as well for them. Definitions and language that's embedded into your content and your context. Maybe you could, bring it to a lower level. Again, having the vocab and the pictures, your flashcards printed would be great for them too. However, you did use the KWL chart, like you said, so that was really good in the beginning to see, because that really helps them know what they already know and what they're going to learn.
Right.
And listening and drawing on the student's background to build prior knowledge. You did do that as well. You referred back to their experiences. So even though they're not from this country, you did try to see what else they knew from their home country. And you did a great job at using nonverbal cues to support comprehension. So just like how you were using before to explain it to me, you used your hands a lot, and you did gesture and you did point. So those were all phenomenal points.
Thank you.
Okay. So another strategy that we use that we agreed upon, because since this is your first year, you wanted to know how you were doing. So this is the feedback chart. Okay. So what I did was that I took all 8 of your students. Okay, and this down here is the key so that you are aware. So if you see an E on any one of the children's names, it means that you encouraged that student. PB is that you probed the student, like if they were struggling, maybe you tried to probe them to ask them a question or maybe give them a hint or a clue. Positive reinforcement is the O. PR is that you prompted them, or D is that you discouraged the pupil. So maybe you didn't answer their question, or maybe you didn't see when they raised their hands, or whatever the case. So Raul and Juan are your ELL students, and Sally, Sue, and Steve are your diverse learners, so your children that are in special education. So overall, you really did do a great job, with giving positive reinforcements to the students. Again, whether that was a verbal praise or a high five or a smile or a thumbs up, that was great too. You really probed the students as well if they were struggling. You really encouraged almost all of your students. But there were a few that you did discourage by not answering their questions, or maybe you were sidetracked or you just didn't see their hand raised.
Okay.
So it really was diverse, but overall it was well, and you can continue working on that. Okay.
Yeah.
And the last one that we had agreed upon doing, just so that we can kind of track how you're using the time, your period of time with the students, but also how much time you're spending with each child in the classroom. So this is the diagram of your classroom, and this is the diagram of teacher utilization of the space. So this is a diagram of how your classroom is set up. So your starboard is on the front, your desk is over to the left-hand side, the student cubbies are there as well, and your students sit in the middle, all 8 of your kids, and in the back of the room is where you have your different centers, and then the computers are to the right. So it looks like you started off your lesson at 9:30. You were at the top of the starboard. You were presenting the lesson to the kids when I walked in about the sun. And then you traveled to almost each student's desk. Approximately, it looks like you spent maybe 2 to 3 minutes with every student. You really didn't veer off into other areas until about, it looks like here maybe 9:47 or so. 9:43 when you went to your center, and I could see that at your center you were organizing your materials for the science lesson to reinforce those skills. And then you went over to the computers, and I saw you turn on the computers. You were setting up websites for the little ones, specifically in Sun as well. And then you went back to your desk. I couldn't really tell what you were doing over there, but I assume you were maybe shuffling through some papers.
Now, would you recommend spending more time with those ELL and diverse learner kids and maybe letting the high ones go fly on their own?
Well, I think that would be best if you maybe dedicated a little bit more time to them. It does look as if you spent only a few minutes with Raul and with Juan. We only got maybe 2 minutes, and then your special ed kids, they're over here again, same thing. They got about 2 to 3 minutes with you, and then I did see that you came back and you kind of addressed the other 2 students that you didn't get a chance to address with them. And then it looks like you ended your time right before the period ended back at the front of the classroom, where you were trying to wrap it up so that the students can go on to their their centers and the computers and stuff. But yes, overall, I would recommend that you definitely go back to those students that are struggling, just to make sure that they are comprehending the lesson, and that they don't have any extra questions.
Maybe when the kids go on computers too, that would be a good time to pull a few of the struggling friends to a guided center by myself and maybe reteach the lesson to them.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. Yes, that's exactly what you can do. Go back and maybe take a handful of students. You only have 8 kids.
Right.
So maybe like a 2-to-1 ratio would benefit them, while some of the other ones are on the computers, and some of the other ones are independently working on their, projects and their assignments.
Perfect.
Okay. Do you have any questions, Miss Wallach, or any extra comments?
At this time, I don't think so, but I'm sure when I get back home and start reflecting on it, I might. So I might be reaching out to you in email if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine. That's why I'm here. I want to be able to work with you any way that you need, or any questions or any concerns that you may have. Do you have a mentor set up since this is your first year?
I do.
Okay. And how is that going?
As a first grade teacher as well. She's very helpful. Anytime I have a question, I go in every Monday after school and we kind of review my lessons for that week, and she helps me out.
Okay, perfect. Do you feel like you may need any other kind of support?
I may like to go on a few professional developments for ELL learners. I don't really have any experience working with them. I have my degree in special ed and general ed, so the ELL world is kind of new to me.
Okay, fine, no problem. If you find anything, please come and let me know. And I can also ask some of the other teachers that have been here for a few years if they've attended any professional development for ELL learners.
Perfect, that would be very helpful.
Okay, all right. So I don't want to take up much more of your time. I know that this is your prep. So again, if after you review anything, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm just going to hand this all to you so you can put it in your file.
Thank you.
And I guess we'll talk soon.
Perfect, thank you for coming in.
No problem, thank you.